Marketing Dividends, presented by the Australian Association of National Advertisers, inspiring responsible, innovative and respected marketing.
Hi, I'm James Hier. Welcome to Marketing Dividends. We're back for 2018 in Adelaide to talk about beer, budgeting and bikini bodies. For the panel this month, we've gone right to the top. All very different companies, but with one thing in common: marketing at their core.
It was 1862 when Thomas Cooper began brewing beer in the fledgling colony of South Australia. More than 150 years on, Cooper's is still in the family. With a huge investment in expansion, the group has brand extensions beyond the well-known red and green Cooper's labels and is the country's biggest Australian-owned beer company. It recently leveraged that Australianness to win a 5-year deal as the exclusive supplier to the Australian Open. Tammy Barton admits she's a penny pincher, even though with 250 staff and 20,000 clients, she doesn't need to be. She started the MyBudget business in 1999 from home and is now on the cusp of taking the business global. The two-time Telstra Businesswoman of the Year built the brand around her with TV ads and a huge referral strategy. If you haven't seen Kayla Itsinas doing squats, then you haven't been anywhere near social media of late. With fiancé Tobi Pearce, the personal trainer used social media to build a worldwide online fitness phenomenon. Using social and data, the pair has captured the female 20 to 35 market, including Hollywood celebrities. In fact, Kayla is herself now a celebrity, appearing around the world at boot camps with hundreds of fans.
This week, I spoke with the heads of Cooper's, Sweat and MyBudget. Here's what we discussed.
My clients are talking to me about this low-growth world that we're in. But if I look at you, founded 99 and average 20% growth, it's not something that seems to be affecting your trajectory. I'm curious how marketing has contributed to that.
Yeah. Well, marketing has contributes substantially to that. I mean, it plays a really crucial role in our business. If marketing performs, the business performs. It has a direct impact on our growth. And just to highlight and to give you an example, a couple of years ago, we launched a new campaign, the Schmicker's most expensive campaign we've ever launched. And from the week it launched, our leads actually started going backwards, and we didn't grow for the first time in the history of MyBudget. And it broke my heart, but 6 months later, after spending all this money, we had to pull the campaign and go back to our original format, which was using real clients, telling their real stories about a real business, how that we've helped them. And the week that we relaunched our old testimonial commercials, our leads went up by 15%. We shot new creative, made sure that our CVP, our customer value proposition, was prevalent in that campaign. And then when we launched them, our leads went up by 40%. So it's not just that marketing has a direct impact on growth, it's the right marketing has the direct impact on growth.
Right. And Glenn, if I look at 24 years of beer volume growth, but you've been around for 155 years, I mean, there must be an enormous amount of ad stock, equity that's already been built. How does marketing really contribute to a brand that's been around such a long time and would be something that is incredibly familiar to all Australians?
Yeah. While it's familiar, James, it's these days where marketing plays an even bigger role, because we're up against giant international breweries, really big ones, that have a massive amount of money and a massive amount of marketing spend. So to us, the marketing became an issue that we had to be unique. We couldn't be the same as the others. A bit like beer's beer, but what we did is we tried to make ourselves different. And some of the best marketing campaigns we did were always unique and quite quirky. They were done by Andrew Kelly and Peter Withy at KWP, who was still with and been with them a long time. We had to differentiate ourselves a little bit, but not take ourselves away from what the consumer saw as a beer drinking brewery. So it's now more relevant than ever that we can try and control that position. Because if we don't control that position and we become just like the others, we will get murdered. They've got massive boxing gloves, we've got little gloves. And so in the end, we have to market, but in a unique way.
Right. And talk about unique marketing. Tobi, with your partner, Kayla, built an almost $100 million revenue brand seemingly overnight. Are you using the 4 Ps?
4 Ps.
Do I need to tell you what they are?
Could you please? Yeah. No, I think. Whilst I think they're definitely relevant, I think a lot of our decision-making process is based certainly off of other things. So our holistic business decision-making process is actually based off of 4 pillars that we call feasibility, profitability, scalability and sustainability. So whilst the 4 Ps are important for certain pitching purposes and so on and so forth, we actually use those 4 pillars to mandate our decision making internally in relation to not only marketing but other business decisions as well. So as far as marketing goes in relation to our business, I mean, it kind of fundamentally provides three key things, and they're basically reach and awareness, an ability to push our messaging and branding, and ultimately supply, which is lovely, and ultimately the ability to invoke an action or emit an action from a user, whether it be engaging with content or actually making a purchasing decision. So. And
those 4 pillars, do you have to tick each of them off? Do you have to get them all right? Is two out of 4 going to crack it?
No. The reason that we kind of explain it as 4 pillars of a house, or the four pillars within a house, and if one of them or 2 of them don't stand, then the house won't stand. And the reason being, because of the way that they're constructed, they're all interdependent, or dependent on one another. So primarily, if we were to run a campaign, for example, that was hugely profitable, that's obviously traditionally a good thing for business. But if it's not something that we can sustain for a longer period of time, or ultimately something that's scalable, then we're not necessarily really interested in it, because it's only a short-term win and it's not something that's actually going to have a fundamental change impact on the business. It's all good to run a marketing campaign that gets 10 really profitable sales, but if you're talking about 10,000 a day, the 10 doesn't really actually move the dial. So we're more concerned about the activities that we do satisfying those 4 pillars, so that we know that they're making good holistic impacts on the business, not just acute ones.
And how applicable is what you're doing to other businesses? So can I take this marketing approach and put it in an analog offline brand, or is it something that only works in the digital world?
No, I think it definitely. I think it, I guess, without being blatant, I think it would probably work in almost any organisation in the world. However, in saying that, obviously the execution is going to differentiate quite drastically. We're a primarily digital business, so obviously you can't use primarily digital strategies in an analog business. But fundamentally, that philosophy and that decision-making process, it's designed to mandate good long-term business decisions. So it's not just about social media or the internet or websites or whatever. It's for any business. You could be in manufacturing or beer making or fin planning or whatever. It's not going to make any difference. It'll still add a good long-term value to the organisation.
I'm talking about the long-term, Glenn. Every time I think about longevity, I think of you and your brand.
I'm not that old.
If I think of the legacy brands like Unilever and Procter & Gamble, there's a way to market that they have, created over the years. And I'm interested, is there a Cooper's route to market?
Well, no, it's over that period of time, no, because it's evolved. You've got to understand one thing, is that my great-great-grandfather that started the brewery had 2 wives and 19 children. So that sort of messed it up right from the start. So we know a little bit of succession planning. But what's happened during those periods of things have evolved through the generations, and it's been the ability to react during those generations that's give us the longevity. So, I can only talk from the later generation, but it's an area where we believe that personality plays a big part for us. Now, the reason I say that is because personality's always played a big part. They always said the Coopers. And my mother said to me, she said, don't be the Cooper that messes up the brewery, you'll get annihilated by the family. So there's been this proud personality all the way through, and that's what's driven us to be able to do things that are, I'll say, right for the time. The times change. Now, even now, with social media, things have changed totally. So we've had to adapt. The one thing I do say that we try and promote even more and more is the personality attached to the brand. I mean, without bagging too many other brands, VB doesn't have a personality, right? So, you know, what we do is we've always made sure that our product has a personality, and that's what we've worked on. So as generational changes occur and people's personalities change, we've tried to adapt to that period.
I mean, personality feels very emotional. Tammy, I'm interested in modern marketing practices. I sort of picture you hugging and riding your dashboard as you're making decisions. You're a very different type of business. Obviously, you are a personality in your own right, but in terms of decision making and using analytics to do that, how does that steer your business?
Well, I mean, using analytics is really important for MyBudget to make decisions. I mean, anyone who knows me knows that the first thing I do when I get into my office in the morning, if I haven't already done it at home, is log into our dashboard and see how everything's tracking. And that really helps make decisions, but you have to couple that with your own gut instinct. And I say that gut instinct comes from really knowing your client, knowing your product, knowing what they want, knowing what their pain points are, and then being able to solve those issues for them. And once you know that and you combine that with the data, I think then you can make the right decisions moving forward. So, but absolutely, data and analytics are key. They kind of back up your gut instincts, I think. And I would choose my gut, though, over analytics.
So if the data is absolutely telling you to go one way, but your instinct is telling you not to do that, you will ignore the data?
To an extent. I mean, to an extent. But I would say if it's like 50-50 and you're unsure, because the data's not giving you a clear answer, I would go with my gut. If the data's clearly saying something, then generally that will persuade my gut anyway.
Right. So, Tammy, you're hugging your dashboards. Tobi, I see you bench pressing the screens. Do you have coffee or do you go to your analytics first thing in the morning?
I actually alternate between squats and bench press.
Right.
Analytics are really important. Kayla actually frequently reminds me that I'm a big nerd because I love numbers and I so frequently draw them on walls everywhere. But data for us is certainly really key. I think actually probably to give a story, I mean, I learnt, fortunately in a really positive way, that two key characteristics of data are fundamentally more important than anything else, and those two things for us are attribution and accuracy. So obviously accuracy of data is kind of, I mean, it's an assumed, you kind of assume that it's accurate, but unfortunately it's not necessarily always accurate, and it's sometimes open to interpretation. So I think for us, like getting the accuracy was right was definitely very important, but the next thing for us was the attribution. So probably without going and getting too in detail, which I do very often, is that, because we're a subscription business and we operate digitally, everything is attributable, but how you attribute that data and how you determine which piece of marketing content is actually responsible for the sale is very important. When we had that discovery, when we decided upon what our model would be and how that would work a few years ago, it meant that we were actually able to more than triple our marketing spend because we realised we were actually performing a lot better than what we understood initially, which therefore massively accelerated the growth of the organisation. So,
I mean, that's a really interesting finding, that your analytics actually realises the real ROI of marketing and you're able to triple and hopefully still get a return?
Yes, big return still for now, but it was still very profitable, yeah.
Stick around. More from South Australians marketing giants after the break. Welcome back. I'm James Hier from Wavemaker, and on the panel this week we have Glenn Cooper, chairman of Cooper's Brewery. We have Tammy Barton, founder and director at MyBudget, and we have Tobi Pearce, founder again and CEO of Sweat. All literally first moves into your category, albeit a bit earlier. Glenn, you've had decades of craft beer leadership. I'm interested now how your company is dealing with a category that feels craft is everywhere, it's accessible, there's lots of variety. And are you caught in the middle, not big enough to deal with the behemoths you've talked about and not small enough for that new micro brewer that's appeared?
Yeah, well, we are to a certain degree caught in the middle. It's how we manage that position. I'm going to give you a little example. The little pop-up bars, they say to me, oh, Coopers, you're too big to be craft. And I say, well, wait a minute, we started it. We're the grandfather of craft. So that's a frustration because it's a perception. So what we do is we've had to do some alterations. Now, people say to me, do we find craft as competitive? Not necessarily, because what it's done is grown the pie in what I call the thinking drinker. Whereas before, if we go back to our fathers and so, or mothers, you know, the guys that sit in the bar and one would drink 2Es and one would drink 4X and they would not swap and they would argue about which one was better. Today, the young people will experiment. Typically, research shows about 7 different brands you'll play around with. Then you come back to some favourites. So that's what craft has done. So the pie's been grown, which is nice. Problem is that there's more competitors in the pie. We're in a strong position, but we've had to move a little bit towards making a crafty type beer. Now, when I say that, we've always made a crafty type beer. It's now perception. We have to market now to the people that say this is a craft beer from Coopers. Wow, you know, we're releasing a new beer called Session Ale, right? Oh, wow, a new craft beer from Coopers. You know, I'm not going to abuse them and say we've been doing it for 155 years, but look, if that's what turns you on, great, that's terrific. But we have to move ourselves a little bit to engage with this craft group. The worst situation is what's happening in America, where what's occurring now, the rows of craft beer are so prolific. There's like 4,000 craft breweries in one state. And they go with these weird bottles of every little label in the world. And what the seller does now is he takes it out of the 4-pack, out of the and puts it in single bottles. So there's rows and rows of these weird names. Some of the weirdest names beers you've ever seen. And people go along with a shopping trolley and take one of those, one of those. There is no brand loyalty. They don't understand even who made it. So that's a dangerous position in my book as to losing the brand position, because if that occurs, then the big supermarkets will have a ball because you lose your brand equity. And that to me is a very, very strong point that's got to be watched.
It feels like the craft category becoming almost like wine. I choose by label, and which is the funniest name.
You do? I need to talk to you after.
So, I mean, Tammy, the problem always being when you lead in a category, show that there's growth and profitable growth. You have a lot of fast followers. How do you combat against the fast follower coming in and stealing a march on you because they're able to skip all the platforms you may have gone through previously?
It's interesting you say that, because this January versus last January, we've had a 350% increase on people bidding on our brand through Google AdWords. So there's certainly a lot more, fast followers popping up. I guess what works in our favour is we're dealing with people's money and finances, and it's actually quite an emotional thing. So the fact that we have been around since 1999, I know it's nowhere near as long as Coopers, but we've been around since 1999. We have helped nearly 75,000 Australians. We manage close to $1 billion every year. That credibility plays a part. That combined with just making sure that you're always providing a premium service, that you're always looking at yourself and saying, how do I disrupt myself? How do we innovate? And never be complacent with the product that you're providing, and say, where are the pain points for our clients? And always working to solve those pain points and just help people and help our clients as best we can. And that sort of is what keeps us at that forefront.
So if I add something here just for a moment. What MyBudget being a financial budget is sort of a bit like, it's probably started out as boring. It's boring. Helping people do their budget. Sure, it's boring. I got a problem. What Tammy's done is she's attached the personality that I talked about earlier to a product that can be seen as boring. She's attached with her name to that. And that would make a massive difference in how many people want to connect with her brand too.
Right. And I mean, one of the barriers to entry being trust, right? I mean, it's a very different category from a number of others. So is that one of, you think, the key barriers to entry for fast followers?
Well, I mean, I think when a client comes and sees MyBudget, at their very next salary will come into an account that we manage on their behalf. So you have to build that trust. And I think Glenn touched on a really good point, and that is, I personally humanise the brand, but if you go and speak to any of our staff, any of our employees, the feel on our website, on our social media, it is that we care about you, and that is actually one of our core values. And you can walk through our call centre and listen to our staff, and people will go, wow, sounds like your staff actually care about the clients. And I go, well, it's not that they sound like they actually care. They really, really do. That is one of our values, and we don't plaster it up on the wall. It's just who we are. We recruit for people who care, who want to make a difference in people's lives, who want to teach financial responsibility, not just want to come and work in a call centre.
And trust being a barrier for entry. Tobi, you know, my massive concern if I was in your shoes would be the low barriers to entry in your industry, where literally opening up an Instagram feed and having a body not like mine, you can start a business.
I think your body's tremendous.
Thank you. But, I mean, the barriers to entry feel really, really low. Fast followers can come in there quite quickly. What is stopping them from usurping yourselves?
I mean, they can kind of come and go as they please. Obviously, that's totally fine. I mean, at Sweat we kind of have two different types of competitors, and they're quite distinct in the sense that we have businesses and brands that will come along that will launch their own app or their own series of products online, and then we also do have the individuals that will create a social media account and put their tremendous physique online and attempt to distribute their content. I mean, I think for us, like we have a couple of different things and approaches that kind of, I mean, don't render that non-existent, but help like maintain our confidence level and our prevalence in the industry. And that being, I mean, first and foremost, we have a whole bunch of proprietary technology and proprietary content that no one else in the world can have because it's ours. Because of where we live in a content-based industry, if the content's what you want and we have it, nobody else can have it. It has to be something else, so it's ours. And then I think as well, I mean, the fitness industry, much like many others, is definitely rapidly changing. And you know, the people who do maintain their position in that industry, and hopefully will be one of them, are the ones who not only use sustainable business operations, but ones who use sustainable marketing operations. And what I mean by that is that we're quite focused on making sure that the purchasing decision made by our consumers is a legitimate one. So to give an example, we're not in a rush to make money or in a rush to segment ourselves from competitors and whatever, because ultimately we believe that when consumers buy our product, they're buying it for the right reason. So there was once, and there probably will be again, there was a really great 6-week ab program online quite a few years back that made a significant amount of money, but their big tagline was basically about, well, I'll get you guaranteed abs in 6 weeks. And the likelihood of that actually happening is obviously not necessarily that high. So the person's purchasing decision is quite impulsive. So the likelihood that they're going to spend money and then continue to spend money is obviously quite low. They're ultimately eventually going to get quite likely disappointed and then deviate to another product which has more sustainable results and is more trustworthy, like ourselves, because we take that sustainable marketing approach. So we'd rather not manipulate people or convince people based on impulse that they should buy. We'd rather educate them to make a legitimate purchasing decision so that their engagement with our product is realistic, which makes us a far more sustainable, trustworthy competitor and significantly segments us from the audience. We don't have consumers who come and go. We have consumers who come and stay.
And that's it from Marketing Dividends this week in Adelaide. Join us later this month where we'll be filming in Perth. See you then.